And welcome back to the First and Goal podcast. My name is Lewis, and next to me, as always, is my beautiful co-host, Laraib. As we are here, it is time to pick and break down the matchups for championship weekend, Laraib. 4 teams, 2 games, and it's going to get super exciting on this conference championship weekend. A lot to break down in both these games, but only have 2 games to break down, so this will be a shorter episode. I just want to say, super excited to be here, Larab, and I genuinely think we have the 4 best teams from each conference. The 2 best teams from each conference are in these 2 games. For how the whole regular season played out, I could maybe argue my Cowboys, but because how bad they flopped, um, I believe these are the best 4 teams remaining. So I think it's going to be an awesome slate for these 2 games, Laura. Anything you want to say before we hop into the first matchup?
No, let's just go ahead and dive right in with the first game. Your Kansas City Chiefs traveling to Baltimore to play my Ravens. Just a quick hint on who we're picking. Baltimore -4 at home, Lewis. That's a huge line for this unstoppable Chiefs team that is coming into Baltimore. Who do you like in this game and why?
Well, I'm just going to get it straight off the back because I've been thinking about how I was going to approach this in today's episode. So, like I am up 1 in our postseason picks thanks to Mr. Baker Mayfield beating the Eagles and thanks to Mr. Patrick Mahomes taking care of business last week. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I am picking the Kansas City Chiefs to win this game. Now, let me break down the reasons that make me skeptical. So I'll start with that Ravens defense, Laura. And I've applauded ever since last year when they got rid of Wink Martindale. They made a transition defensive coordinator to Mike McDonald, and they go ahead and they trade for Roquan Smith, which was like they traded away a 3rd round pick, a very valuable pick. And it's like, how valuable is a middle linebacker to a defense? Like, they already had Patrick Queen, they had some other decent guys in there. But the way he's transformed that defense, along with the ascension of a guy like Patrick Queen, is more of an off-ball linebacker, sideline to sideline, can just use his speed, use his athleticism to make plays where he's not the guy in the middle. And also, the ascension of guys like Justin Madubuike on the defensive line, Kyle Hamilton at safety, Geno Stone at safety. These guys are just all in the right places. And honestly, it's almost like they have the perfect matchup against this Kansas City Chiefs offense. Because when you say who are the most dangerous Kansas City Chiefs offensive players, you would say Mahomes number 1, you would say Kelsey number 2, and I would say number 3 is Isaiah Pacheco. And all those guys, at least where they could beat you the most, especially Kelsey and Pacheco, is over the middle of the field or, breaking down plays. Things are going awry. What can you do? They have the guys at all the different spots. So for Kelsey, it's, you're going to get a lot of Geno Stone. You're going to get a lot of Kyle Hamilton and Patrick Queen all roaming around, really athletic guys who are going to keep a lot of eyes on you the entire game. And then, Madubuike getting interior pressure on Patrick Mahomes, making him escape the pocket. These are things that do concern me in this matchup. And this Ravens defense, number 1 in scoring. They led the league in sacks, turnovers, and scoring. Only defense since the merger to do such a thing. So this is, in my opinion, Laura, the toughest opponent Patrick Mahomes has faced in any AFC championship game he's played in his career. And not only to the fact that this is in Baltimore. So I understand why this is a 4-point line. But the thing I want to highlight, which I think has been underrated, is Rashee Rice and what he has brought to this Kansas City offense. We've been talking about all season long, the drops, all the miscommunication, all the problems with the receivers, not an alpha standing up, Kadarius Toney banged up, Marquez Valdes-Scantling with the drops. But the ascension of Rashee Rice and what he's brought to this offense has been huge for them as a reliable outside threat. And these corners, Marlon Humphrey, I feel like he's going to play in this game. I mean, it's the AFC Championship against Patrick Mahomes. Like, he's probably going to want to play in this game. but how effective is he going to be? They haven't been that great guarding outside the numbers all season long. So if Mahomes is flushed out, I think the connection he's built with Rashee Rice will allow them to sustain drives and get in positions to score. It's just about being consistent and not turning the ball over. The only turnover they had last week against the Bills was that awful fumble out of the back of the end zone when they were on the 1 yard line, which I feel like is not going to happen again. But, they lost, the 6 games in the regular season. A lot of that was because of the turnovers. But, since that Raiders game, they only have 3 turnovers all, in that entire 5 game stretch after that. So it feels like they're cleaning things up. And we just know Reed and Mahomes come playoff time, this is where they, everything's get tightened up. They find the guys they trust and they use them. And all I need the Chiefs offense to do is not turn the ball over, be able to establish the run with Pacheco, which I think they will be able to, and play mistake-free football. If they can do that, I feel like this game will be close. And if it's a close game with Mahomes and Reed, I like my bet right there.
And I'm going to flip it on over to the other side in the MVP and Lamar Jackson. Now, there's very few guys in the NFL who can do anything like Lamar Jackson, and he is going to be the reason why this Chiefs defense is going to struggle this weekend. Now, of course, we saw this Chiefs defense, Lewis, couldn't stop a cold against the Bills in the first half. And in the second half, once they stopped running the ball, it was basically lights out for them offensively. But this Ravens team is not going to get away from the run like any other teams are. This is what they've built on all year long. Even if you have no-name guys like Gus Edwards and Justice Hill's toting the rock, they have a great offensive line with guys like
Dalvin Cook,
Moses Malone, Dalvin Cook. They just able to mix up the offense a lot with their just ability to run the ball. And Lamar Jackson, and what was a shaky first half for that offense, came out at halftime and started running that thing like a monster between the tackles up the field. He's not afraid to get hit, Lewis. He's not afraid to lay hits himself. He's going to be going for touchdowns. Mark Andrews, I think, is going to be playing for this game as well. You talk about Marlon Humphrey. I think Mark Andrews will be back for this one. And he just disrupts it so much. And about this receiving core, maybe not the flashiest guys, just like I mentioned for running backs, but Odell Beckham Jr., quietly having a really good season. And if they go on to win this one, OBJ with the second ring. Zay Flowers, a rookie, a lot of talk about Rashee Rice and how well he's been playing, but Zay Flowers has been outstanding wide receiver one for this Ravens team and has really opened it up. I think Todd Monken is going to put on an absolute masterclass against this Chiefs defense, which I gave a lot of credit to start the season, Lewis. They were playing excellent defense. For the last couple of weeks, I just really don't see that out of them anymore. Chris Jones, he wreaked havoc on that last play that won them the game. Credit to him for that. Besides that, I really haven't seen him making those, plays that really stand out to you on the field. And I think this Baltimore Ravens offensive line is going to move around that Kansas City Chiefs defensive line, and it's going to be a fun day for Lamar Jackson over there in Baltimore.
I want to ask you real quick, staying on Baltimore offense specifically. We saw, the Ravens just waived a linebacker, Jeremiah Moon. Ideally, now a roster spot is open. Do you believe that Mark Andrews will be elevated to play in this game? And how much of an impact will that make?
Oh, most definitely. He's been practicing the last couple of weeks. Of course, it was interesting when they held him out for that Texans game, and he was also practicing for that. But like you mentioned, when you take a guy off your roster spot and open up a spot, it makes me feel like really confident that Mark Andrews is going to play. And, maybe if he doesn't have the greatest performance, Lewis, he's just somebody that this Chiefs defense is going to have to respect. He's a big body. He's always going to be a big target for Lamar Jackson, especially in the red zone. But even if you talk about him, having to bring a safety on him or a linebacker on him or maybe double him, it just opens up these one-on-one matchups for the wide receivers. Now, you can tell me Nelson Aguilar maybe doesn't have the greatest hands in the league, or Rashad Bateman, same thing for him. But if they're one-on-one, you can kind of trust these speedy guys to go out and maybe catch a deep one on this Chiefs secondary.
Well, that's the thing for me is I want to focus on this Chiefs defense because I really feel like a lot of people, you included, are really underrating this Chiefs defense. Because I brought up the numbers about the Ravens defense, and you said Swiss cheese against the Bills in that first half. Well, what they've done in the second half of games all season long, they have not allowed more than 10 points scored entire second half all year long. And they shut down Josh Allen and that, Bills attack last week. And it was really interesting to see how Spagnuolo, how he game plan against the Bills and what I think he will try to carry over in this game. I think what he fears the most, what I would fear the most from this Ravens team is Lamar Jackson and his legs. Now, you have some questionable guys for this game. Mike Edwards, the safety, Willie Gay, linebacker, and L'Jarius Sneed. I feel like all of them will play. Maybe not Willie Gay, because it looked like a serious injury last week against the Bills. But that is the number one threat. And he's done such a good job of sending guys at the perfect time and getting Lamar in trouble. And from what I've seen, passing wise, Lamar in that first half really wasn't that prolific. And if this is a close game, you say this team will stay disciplined to the run. If this is a close game and you know that it's Patrick Mahomes on the other sideline, I really question your ability to stay disciplined to the run, no matter who you are. We saw the Bills rush for over almost 200 yards last week, and they had to go away from it in the second half because it's Patrick Mahomes. Even when you're leading, you still have to be aggressive. That's the fear that Mahomes and Reed and Kelsey put into teams. And that's when Steve Spagnuolo and this Chiefs team will be at its best. Sending blitzes, get Lamar off his spots, forcing throws, forcing mistakes. And I believe that in this spot, Lamar is going to be pressing because of this Chiefs defense. Their pass defense has been amazing. McDuffie, L'Jarius Sneed, I think they're going to do a really good job on the outside. And it's just about containing that middle of the field. If Mark Andrews plays, is their chemistry going to be off? Is he going to be forcing it to Mark Andrews? How is that going to affect their game plan? Because he's been out for such a long time. And you've seen a guy like Isaiah Likely take a pretty big jump into an offensive role for this team. So if he plays, maybe there's, questions about chemistry there within the entire offense. You see it as a net positive, but I see it as a huge stakes game. Lamar sees his 89 across the middle. Does he try to press a bit knowing Mahomes is on the sideline? And that's just the effect that this Chiefs offense has on this Chiefs defense. It just allows them to be a lot more free and to rush the passers. So I think this Chiefs defense is entirely slept on. And sure, the Ravens were number one in sacks, so 60 sacks this year. The Chiefs were number two with 57. Oh, the Ravens were number one with 28 takeaways this year. The Chiefs were number two with 26. So it's really here and here with these two defenses. The run defense does worry me, but I do not think, given Mahomes and Reed on the other sideline, that this Ravens team, unless they have a huge lead, which they've been struggling in first halves, a lot of games, they kind of feel things out. They're not too aggressive. Unless they, start blowing the Chiefs out, I don't think they will stay disciplined to the run in this game.
Well, Lewis, I like that you mentioned the fact about how much this Chiefs defense is going to blitz and how much you think that's going to cause havoc for Lamar Jackson, because he did make those mistakes in his first 6 or 7 games this season, Lewis. His QBR was maybe the lowest in the league. His passing yards are the lowest in the league when pressured. But since week 15 and on, I think he has not thrown an interception, and he has the third best QBR when blitz this year. And like you mentioned, this Chiefs defense loves to send the heat. They're top 5 in blitzes this year. And when they think they can, they collapse the pocket on Lamar, he's been disciplined so far in the latter half of the season. And I think he's going to really make this Chiefs defense play. These drop picks by Isaiah McDuffie that could have been a pick six to L'Jarius Sneed is just going to hurt a lot more in this one when Lamar Jackson is torching that Chiefs defense.
So that brings me to how this game I feel like is going to play out. I think for the Chiefs to win this game, this needs to be a lower scoring game. Now, the line for this game is 46.5. If the Chiefs can muddy this game up and it comes down to a 17-17 fourth quarter, Mahomes has the ball, even Lamar has the ball, it's just hard for me not to bet on the Chiefs because of all the experience they've had from all the playoff games they've played in the last 6 years since Mahomes has been quarterback. And for Lamar, this is such a huge, high pressure spot for him because he's talked about he doesn't care about the MVPs. He doesn't care about the division titles. He doesn't care about the all pros and things like that. He is here to win the Super Bowl. That is his goal. That was the thing going into the offseason is, pay me. I deserve it. I will win this team a Super Bowl. There's a lot of pressure on Lamar in this game. And when it comes down to it, I believe Mahomes will be the riser in these type of moments. If this game is super high scoring, I do believe in Mahomes that he can stay with Lamar, but that means the Chiefs defense is failing. And if that's the case, I just don't think that they will be able to stop Lamar in any spot in the game. So I think they will be able to get stops on Lamar and then opportunistic stops in the fourth quarter. And if you're telling me to place a bet on anyone in the entire NFL, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid will always be my number one until proven otherwise. And it's done me pretty well in the past. So I'm sticking with it right here, Laraib. I am picking the Chiefs to win this game 24-20.
And I am picking the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson, please save us. Please, Lamar, please save us. And he's going to pull through in this situation. He's going to prove all 31 other teams who didn't want to go out this last offseason and sign him to a contract. He's going to prove all 30. He's going to prove all 30 teams why they should have signed him this offseason. He's going to prove this Ravens organization why they did the right thing in paying him. And he's going to prove to Patrick Mahomes that sometimes it's not always the best player who wins. Sometimes it's the second best player who wins. Give me Lamar Jackson at home, 26-24 as the Chiefs cover, but the Baltimore Ravens move on to the Super Bowl.
All right, well, those are our picks for the AFC Championship. And it's interesting, Laraib, because I think we would both argue that this is definitely the game of the day. But every year they flip-flop the AFC NFC Championship, no matter the game, just based off of, equality for the TV networks and whatever. So even though this is the better game, it has to be stuck in this 3:30 slot. But let's move on. And I think both games are going to be good. Let me just get that out of the way. But let's move on to the second game, the NFC Championship. The Detroit Lions at 11 or 12-5 technically, and then 14-5 if you want to count the playoff games. Traveling to San Francisco. San Francisco is favored by 7 points in this game, Laraib. We talk a lot about these two quarterbacks. Number 1 overall pick, Jared Goff, who's been through adversity, who's been through, switching teams, being doubted, losing confidence, and then roaring his way back literally with this Lions team and the confidence they have given him to be the guy. And he's back in the NFC Championship against Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the draft for the 49ers. Both of these quarterbacks have been questioned a lot. Which one for you is under more pressure to perform in this game?
More pressure? I have to go with Jared Goff. He has the entire United States of America riding behind him, except for the state of California. I mean, the immense pressure on this Lions team. This is a team from a year ago who didn't win their first game until halfway through the season, and now here they are in the NFC Championship. Now, there's a lot of discussion on Brock Purdy. Is he MVP type candidate? This or that. But he was the last overall pick in his draft, and people don't give him the credit that he deserves, should or shouldn't deserve, for the success for this 49ers team. But Jared Goff, this is somebody who people have questioned his entire career being the number 1 overall pick, being someone who brought that Rams team to the Super Bowl and came up short. And now someone who was, thought to be a rebuild quarterback or just a system quarterback for this Lions team, now at the NFC Championship once again for this Lions team. So I think the pressure is really on him, but is he going to feel it? I think so. I would really love this Lions team, Lewis, if they were in a dome, not an outside stadium, but unfortunately they will be playing outside in Santa Clara, Lewis.
Good weather, 70 degrees, no rain, anything.
But let me just give you some Jared Goff stats from when he's outdoors. 5% lower completion, 10% lower QBR, 38% more picks per game, and 18% less touchdowns per game when he's playing outdoors. Now, I still expect this game to be high scoring. I think the Ravens-Chiefs game is going to be a little bit of a defensive masterclass, But I believe that this San Francisco 49ers defense, much like the Chiefs defense, Lewis, is living on name value alone. Guys like Eric Armstead, Nick Bosa, who got paid a lot of money this offseason, Chase Young, who they traded for, just have not shown up in those big moments. We saw Jordan Love march over there into San Francisco and kind of, have his way with that defense. Now, the numbers don't say that, but what your eye test tells you whenever you're watching that game, he had any throw that he wanted all day long, and Aaron Jones got to exploit that weak front seven. And I think that's going to be more of the same. And it's going to come down to which one of these quarterbacks has the better game or the less turnovers. And I think Kyle Shanahan is going to have Brock Purdy in the right position for this one.
So I want to go back to the question I asked you, which quarterback is under more pressure? And I want to ask you a quick question. If the Lions season ends in a loss in the NFC Championship in San Francisco, would you consider this season a failure for the Lions?
No.
No, absolutely not. They won their first home playoff game in forever in their entire history, and they won two of them. They're in the NFC Championship. That's why, for me, if Brock Purdy loses this game, people are going to ask legitimate questions. Is he the quarterback going forward? Despite all the things that he's, been proving this year, leads the NFL in quarterback rating, touchdown to interception ratio, passes over 20 yards, whatever the advanced statistic is, he's probably leading or definitely top 5 in the NFL. And excuse me. And that's why I think he is in the pressure spot here. But what he showed me last game, despite all the misses, all the dropped interceptions, when he went on that final drive and was dealing in the weather against the Packers defense, which was playing very well all game long, to go on that final drive, to get the touchdown, to go up, and then, obviously Jordan Love makes the mistake to end the game. That showed me a lot for Brock Purdy and what he is made of in this type of spot. And I think against this Detroit defense that is just not great against the pass. We saw the last two quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield and Matt Stafford, just destroy that secondary in big plays. And I believe, if Debo plays, or even if not Debo plays, the guys on the outside will be good enough to get those huge chunks across. And I just feel like I have more faith in this 49ers offense at home with all the weapons they have, especially with Christian McCaffrey, top 5 finalist for league MVP, that they will be able to score more than the Lions. You brought up an interesting point about this 49ers defense. How good are they really? Yes, they were a great defense in the regular season. They have the big names, Travarius Ward, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, all 3 levels of the defense. They have guys. But, we obviously saw the Packers get whatever they want, especially on the ground. They were really ran on in that playoff game last week. So, now you're looking at David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, and that Lions offensive line. How are we going to be able to stop that? You need to make this a track meet. You need to make both quarterbacks pass in high pressure situations. And I feel like I have more faith in Kyle Shanahan and this 49ers team to consistently keep the pressure on Jared Goff, make Jared Goff press, make him make mistakes. And I believe that he will in this game on the road because they've received everything. They've received all the praise. This is a successful season for them. The 49ers are not finished. In their minds, if they lose this game, it is a failure of a year, given all the all-pros, all the talent, all the adulation. This is their time to put up or shut up. And it's on the biggest pressure in this game for me is on Kyle Shanahan, given his playoff resume and all the letdowns that he's produced in his coaching or coordinating career. So I believe that this is not where the buck stops for the 49ers. This will be a high-scoring game, but I feel like a Jared Goff mistake in the third, fourth quarter will allow the 49ers to build that cushion. And when they have that cushion in the fourth quarter, that's when they're just going to grind you to death with McCaffrey, Kittle, Ayuk, and if Debo plays, obviously Debo Samuel. So I believe the 49ers will win this game. I think this game will look, less competitive than it actually will be. But I think the 49ers win 34-27 to 26 in this game. So they will cover in my eyes. But I mean, anything could happen. And as I'm thinking about it, there are things I am scared about as a guy who's picking the 49ers. I'm scared of this Lions offensive line in this run game, what they will be able to do. And if there's a way the Lions had the lead going into that fourth quarter, obviously we saw the Shanahan thing. He was 0-30 when trailing by 4, into the fourth quarter. And they won that game against the Packers last week. So is that a leaf that they turned, or is that just a fluke game and a huge spot against a young Packers team? We will see, but this is how I think the game is going to play out, and I will pick the 49ers to win this game 31-26 or 34-26.
And I agree with you. I like the 49ers, but it's going to be off of no condition of how great this 49ers team is, how good Christian McCaffrey's been playing. It's going to be on the backs of Jared Goff and just the one or two mistakes that he's going to have in this game that's going to cost them, the Lions, a trip to the Super Bowl. We saw even in that game against the Bucs, he had a really bad throw that could have been a pick in the end zone for the Bucs, but they just weren't able to capitalize. But this 49ers team, like you mentioned, a lot of all-pros on there who maybe haven't been playing the best football in the last couple of weeks. But I think a Fred Warner fumble punch out, here or there, or pick by, Travis Ward will turn the game on its head and just give the ball to Christian McCaffrey and let him milk out the rest of that clock. Now, I think it's going to be I think the Lions cover, to be quite frank. I think, like you mentioned, I like this Lions team to run the ball all over. I like a huge game from Amon-Ra. I like a huge game from Jahmyr Gibbs. But I just think at the end of the game, it's going to be Kyle Shanahan, who's come up short a lot of times in his career, but he'll be able to get this one on the Lions. And one thing that we haven't mentioned is Dan Campbell. Now, this has been a great season for the Lions, but we know a couple times a game, he's just going to have this crazy play call. Maybe the Lions are backed up in their own, on their own side of the field, and they're going to go for it on 4th and 5, and they might just not get it. They might do a fake punt, Lewis, and might just not get it. They might go for 2 in a spot where they shouldn't have, and they might just not get it, and that could ultimately lead them, to losing this game. But I'm going to go with the 49ers, win this game 31-28 as a Brock Purdy late drive puts the 49ers up and good over this Lions team.
I will say on that last point you made about Dan Campbell, that's another thing that really scares me, because Kyle Shanahan is just this offensive genius, and it feels like he has everything in control. He knows how the game's going to go. But Dan Campbell is just the perfect coach to just mess everything up, to just go in, and if he does hit on that 2-point conversion on the 27-yard line because he's a psycho, or he does get that fake punt or whatever, early in the game to just crazy up the game, that is something that I could see throwing Kyle Shanahan off his rhythm. But I just think this is going to be a really, really entertaining game, and I'm excited to see. And honestly, it's hard for me not to want to root for the Lions. And I think I probably will root for the Lions just because of the story, the fans who have been just so hungry for a championship. It's hard not to root for them. So I want to say that, like, picking the 49ers is purely just a math pick. It's a competitive thing between me and you. I'm picking the 49ers to win, but I am giving this Lions team respect. I think they are the second best team in the conference, and they do have a credible shot to win this game. But I just believe more in the talent all across the roster. If you go matchup versus matchup, 49ers have an advantage almost everywhere except for quarterback. So if that's the difference in this game, then maybe the 49ers do need to look at something else in the offseason. But I'm not going to go that far. We'll talk about that later. But that's going to do it. Only 2 games to break down. I think we did a good job of going in depth for both of these games, really breaking a lot of things down. And we will be excited to break both of these games down in our next Tuesday episode. And then we will have the Super Bowl. We'll be, we'll see how we're going to do things for the Super Bowl. Obviously, no game next week will be the Pro Bowl, and no one cares about that. So, Laraib, anything you want to say before we head out of here?
No, I think this is the First and Goal podcast signing off.
Peace.